The warning goes unheeded. Ambassador Ilara Chen stood alone in the center of the Grand Hall of the Galactic Confederation, her posture rigid, her face resolute despite the wall of skepticism radiating from the 17 alien species that comprised the Confederation's High Council. The massive chamber, designed to intimidate with its soaring ceilings and tiered seating that rose like a mountain around her, felt suffocating. "I repeat," Ilara said, her voice clear and firm in the silence. "Earth formally requests that all expeditions to the Orion Singularity be terminated immediately. This is not a suggestion. This is a warning." The silence that followed lasted precisely 3 seconds before laughter erupted across the chamber. Low rumbles from the massive Travarti delegates, high-pitched trills from the avian Questari, and the rhythmic clicking that passed for humor among the insectoid six. High Chancellor Drav of the Vicar rose from his seat, his sleek, reptilian body adorned with ceremonial medals that clinked as he moved. Unlike the others, he wasn't laughing. His vertical pupils narrowed as he studied the human ambassador. "Ambassador Chen," he said, his voice carrying the distinctive metallic resonance of his species, "with all due respect to Earth's concerns, the Orion Singularity represents the greatest scientific discovery in a millennium. The energy readings alone suggest technologies beyond our current understanding." Ilara didn't flinch. "It's not a technology, Chancellor. It's not a resource to be mined or a puzzle to be solved. It's a threat." A threat. This came from the Questari representative, whose name Ilara couldn't pronounce with her human vocal cords. "Based on what evidence? Your species only achieved faster than light travel 70 years ago. The Vicar have been navigating the stars for 10,000 years." More laughter, more dismissive glances. Ilara had expected this. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, their technology considered crude by Confederation standards. Their ships were slower, their weapons less advanced. What humans did have was a history of survival against impossible odds and an instinct for danger that other species seemed to lack. "We've been studying the Orion Singularity for longer than we've had starships," Ilara countered. "Our astronomers detected its anomalous properties 300 years ago. We've had probes monitoring it since before we even knew other intelligent life existed." Chancellor Drav made a gesture that translated roughly to polite disbelief. "And yet you bring no data to this chamber, no evidence to support your claims of danger." Ilara took a deep breath. "The data we have is complex. What we know is that the singularity is not natural. It's not just a black hole or a spatial anomaly. It's alive in a way we don't fully understand." This time the laughter was even louder. The sixth representative chittered something that the translator rendered as, "The human thinks space can be alive." Ilara clenched her jaw. She had been instructed to try, but not to reveal too much. Earth's understanding of the singularity was limited, but what they did know was terrifying. The problem was, the evidence was largely subjective. The madness that befell research teams who got too close, the nightmares that plagued scientists who studied it too intensely, the whispers that seemed to emanate from the void itself. "I understand your skepticism," she said finally, "but I'm asking you to trust that we have reasons for our concern. Humanity respectfully requests that the Confederation declare the Orion sector off-limits to all expeditions for the next 50 years, until further studies can be conducted remotely." The chamber erupted in protests. 50 years was an eternity in scientific research. The Vicar were already preparing their expedition fleet. The Travarti had invested billions in specialized equipment. The Questari had dedicated an entire generation of scientists to studying the phenomenon. Chancellor Drav raised a scaled hand, silencing the chamber. "Ambassador Chen, your warning is noted. However, the Confederation operates on evidence, not fear. Unless Earth can provide concrete proof of this alleged danger, the expeditions will proceed as planned." Ilara's shoulders sagged almost imperceptibly. She had failed. "Then I must inform you that Earth formally removes itself from these expeditions and disclaims all responsibility for the consequences." "Noted," Drav said dismissively. Is there anything else? Ilara looked around the chamber, meeting as many alien gazes as she could. Remember that we warned you. She turned and walked out, the massive doors of the chamber closing behind her with an echoing thud. 3 weeks later, in the private chambers of the Vicar High Command, Chancellor Drav reviewed the final preparations for the Orion expedition. His species was uniquely positioned to benefit from whatever lay at the heart of the singularity. Vicar neural architecture was the most advanced in the Confederation, their cybernetic enhancements allowing them to process and adapt to new information faster than any organic brain. The humans have refused to share any of their data, reported his chief science officer, Vex. They maintained their position that the expedition should be canceled. Drav made a dismissive gesture. The humans are afraid of their own shadows. They've been isolated on their little blue planet for most of their history. The universe frightens them. Still, Vex hesitated. Some of our analysts find it strange that they would take such a strong position without evidence. Humans are irrational. It's probably some religious superstition. Their history is full of them. Drav flicked through the holographic display, showing the expedition fleet, 5 advanced research vessels, each equipped with the latest in Vicar technology. What's the status of the human monitoring station near the singularity? Still there. They've actually increased their perimeter, added more satellites, more warning beacons. Drav's inner eyelids flickered, a sign of annoyance. They have no authority to restrict access to neutral space. Our course will take us past their perimeter. Make sure our captains understand they are to ignore any communication or warning from the human vessels. Understood, Chancellor. As Vex left, Drav studied the image of the singularity, a swirling darkness at the edge of the Orion Nebula, unlike any spatial phenomenon previously documented. The Vicar had built their civilization on being first to discover, first to exploit, first to advance. Whatever secrets the singularity held, they would belong to the Vicar, not to the primitive humans with their primitive fears. Admiral Helena Frost watched the Vicar fleet appear at the edge of the monitoring zone, their ships sleek and predatory against the backdrop of stars. From the bridge of the EDS Vigilant, Earth's most advanced defensive platform, she could see the warning buoys lighting up, broadcasting their message on all frequencies and in all known languages. Danger. Do not APPO. HFY. Turn back. They're ignoring the warnings, Admiral, reported her communications officer. No response to our hails. Frost had expected as much. The Vicar were nothing if not arrogant. Keep broadcasting, and activate the second-tier warnings. Throughout the sector, more sophisticated warning systems came online, holographic projections that appeared directly in the path of the Vicar ships, showing distressed faces, scenes of horror, visualizations of madness and death. It was psychological warfare, designed to trigger deep-seated fears across species boundaries. On her private channel, a call came through from Earth Command. General O'Cuffer's face appeared, grim and resolute. Admiral, are the Vicar proceeding? Yes, sir. They've ignored all warnings. You are not, under any circumstances, to engage them militarily. Is that understood? Frost clenched her jaw. Even if they cross the inner perimeter. Even then, we cannot risk a war with the Confederation. Not now. But, sir, if they wake it up. O'Cuffer's expression darkened. Then we implement Prometheus Protocol. But until then, we watch and we wait. The communication ended, leaving Frost staring at the advancing Vicar ships. They were now passing through the holographic warnings, their trajectory unwavering. Admiral, her science officer called out, we're detecting energy spikes from the singularity. It's responding to their approach. Frost closed her eyes briefly. May whatever gods they believe in have mercy on them, she murmured, because that thing in the darkness certainly won't. The lead Vicar vessel, the Dominance, was the most advanced research ship ever constructed by the Confederation. Its captain, Sark, a decorated explorer with cybernetic enhancements that allowed him to interface directly with his ship, watched with disdain as they passed through the human warning system. Primitive psychological tactics, he noted to his second-in-command. Visual stimuli designed to trigger fear responses. Quite elaborate for a bluff, his second replied. The humans are theatrical. Record everything for analysis later. It might provide insight into their psychological weaknesses. As they approached the inner perimeter, the scanners began picking up unusual readings from the singularity. Energy patterns that defied explanation. Radiation that fluctuated in mathematically impossible sequences. Fascinating, Sark said, his cybernetic implants processing the data faster than his organic crew members could. It's as if the singularity is reacting to our presence. Captain, the sensor officer called out, I'm detecting something strange. The human warning beacons, they're not just broadcasting messages. They're damping something. Sark frowned. Clarify. The beacons are emitting a counter-frequency to whatever's coming from the singularity, like they're trying to cancel it out. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed Sark's mind. What if the humans weren't trying to scare them away? What if they were trying to protect them? But the thought passed quickly. The Vicar had not become the dominant force in the Confederation by being cautious. Discovery required risk. He gave the order to proceed. As the 5 Vicar ships crossed the final warning perimeter, the human vessels pulled back, retreating to a safer distance. Sark noted this with satisfaction. Let them watch. Let them see what real courage looked like. The Dominants led the fleet toward the swirling darkness of the singularity. Their sensors probed deeper. Their instruments recorded every fluctuation, every pulse of energy. And then something changed. Captain, the communications officer said, confusion in his voice, we're receiving a transmission. From the humans? No, sir. From the singularity. Before Sark could respond, the transmission played throughout the ship. It wasn't language, not exactly. It was a pattern of sounds, of vibrations that seemed to resonate not just in the air, but in the mind itself. Crew members clutched their heads, their cybernetic implants flashing warning signals. Sark felt it too, a presence, vast and ancient, turning its attention toward them. Like an eye-opening, focusing, seeing them. Retreat, he ordered, but it was too late. The darkness of the singularity seemed to deepen, to expand. Not physically, but somehow more fundamentally. As if reality itself was being rewritten around them. The last transmission from the Dominants was cut short mid-sentence. One moment, 5 advanced starships and their crews existed at the edge of the Orion Nebula. The next moment, they did not. From the EDS Vigilant, Admiral Frost watched in grim silence as the Vicar fleet vanished without a trace. No explosion, no distress call. Just gone, as if they had never been there at all. Admiral, her communications officer said quietly, the Confederation is hailing us. Frost nodded. Put them through, and alert Earth Command. Tell them to prepare for Prometheus Protocol. The singularity pulsed, a ripple of darkness spreading outward. Whatever had slept there was awakening, and humanity's worst fears were about to be realized. The price of arrogance. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Confederation was no longer filled with laughter. Instead, a heavy silence hung over the assembled representatives, broken only by the occasional nervous murmur. On the massive central display, the last moments of the Vicar expedition played in an endless loop, 5 ships approaching the singularity, then simply ceasing to exist. High Chancellor Drav stood rigid, his scales pale with shock. Play it again, he demanded. There must be something we're missing. The recording reset. The ships approached. The ships vanished. No explosion. No debris. No radiation surge. Nothing to indicate what had happened. Ambassador Ilara Chen stood at the center of the chamber, her expression grave but not triumphant. We tried to warn you, she said softly. Drav's vertical pupils contracted to thin lines. Is this your doing? Some human weapon we don't know about. Ilara shook her head. No, this is exactly what we feared. The entity in the Orion singularity has been awakened. Entity. The word rippled through the chamber. You speak as if this spatial anomaly is alive. It is. Ilara confirmed. Not alive as we understand life, but conscious. Aware. And now, it's aware of you. The Questeri representative's feathers ruffled in agitation. Preposterous. Even if we accept that some form of consciousness exists within the singularity, how could it simply erase 5 ships? Because it doesn't exist entirely in our reality, Ilara explained. It perceives and interacts with our universe in ways we can barely comprehend. Chancellor Drav's composure was rapidly deteriorating. And you knew this. All this time, Earth knew what that thing was. We suspected. We've had encounters before. 300 years ago, we sent probes. They disappeared. 70 years ago, when we developed faster-than-light technology, we sent a manned mission. 1 ship returned, its crew insane, its data storage containing nothing but mathematical patterns that drove our best scientists to suicide when they tried to decode them. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. We've been maintaining a quarantine perimeter ever since, Ilara continued, broadcasting damping frequencies that kept it dormant. Until now. On the display, new data began streaming in. The singularity was expanding, not quickly, but steadily, and surrounding systems were reporting strange phenomena. Communication disruptions, unexplained dreams plaguing entire populations, astronomical instruments detecting impossible readings. What have we done? The whisper came from the Travarti representative, his massive frame seeming to shrink in on itself. You woke it up, Ilara said simply. And now we have to deal with the consequences. On board the EDS Prometheus, humanity's most advanced scientific vessel, Dr. Maya Osei reviewed the latest readings from the singularity. The ship hovered at the very edge of what they now called the awakening zone, the expanding sphere of influence around the Orion singularity. The patterns are changing, she noted to Admiral Frost, who stood beside her. It's not just expanding anymore, it's searching. Frost's expression remained neutral, but her eyes betrayed her concern. Searching for what? I don't know, but the mathematical sequences are becoming more complex, like it's trying to solve a problem. The door to the lab slid open, and a delegation of Confederation scientists entered, led by Vex, the former chief science officer to Chancellor Drav. The Vicar looked diminished somehow, his usual confidence replaced by a wary respect. Dr. Osei, he greeted her. The Confederation appreciates Earth allowing us to participate in your research. Maya nodded curtly. There was no time for diplomacy or grudges. We've been studying the entity for centuries, but there's still so much we don't understand. Fresh perspectives might help. She pulled up a 3-dimensional model of the singularity and its surrounding space. The entity exists primarily in what we call in space, dimensions beyond our perceived 4-dimensional reality. What we see as a singularity is just a shadow, a projection of its true form into our universe. Vex studied the model, his cybernetic implants processing the data. And you believe it's intelligent. Intelligent, yes, but not in a way we recognize. It doesn't think like we do. It perceives reality as mathematical patterns, as probability waves, and quantum states. Then how do we communicate with it? How do we tell it to go back to sleep? Maya shared a look with Admiral Frost. That's the problem. We've been trying for centuries. The damping frequencies weren't communication. They were more like white noise, drowning out the stimuli from our universe. But now that it's fully awake, it needs a new lullaby. Frost finished. Vex's inner eyelids flickered. And if we can't find one? Neither human answered immediately. They didn't need to. The implication was clear. If they couldn't lull the entity back to dormancy, its expansion would continue. And anything it touched would cease to exist as they understood existence. In emergency session, the Confederation Council debated their options. Military action had been proposed and dismissed. How do you attack something that exists partially outside your reality? Evacuation of nearby systems was underway, but it was a temporary solution at best. Chancellor Drav, once proud and dismissive, now looked haggard. The humans have been containing this entity for centuries. They must have developed technologies, strategies we can adapt. Ambassador Ilara Chen stood quietly at the back of the chamber. When she finally spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the room. "What we have isn't technology," she said. "At least, not primarily. What we have is perspective." All eyes turned to her. Humanity evolved on a dangerous world, surrounded by threats we couldn't defeat through strength alone. We learned to respect what we don't understand. We developed something most spacefaring species seem to lack: a healthy fear of the unknown. Chancellor Drav bristled slightly. "You're saying we're reckless because we're more advanced." "I'm saying you're reckless because you've forgotten what it means to be small," Ilara corrected. "Humans remember what it's like to be powerless in the face of forces beyond our control. We respect boundaries, especially those we don't fully understand." The chamber rumbled with conversation as representatives processed her words. "Earth is willing to share everything we know," Ilara continued. "All our research, all our containment strategies. But containing this entity will require a unified approach and a fundamental change in how the Confederation views the universe." "And what change is that?" asked the Questeri representative. "Humility," Ilara said simply. "The understanding that being technologically advanced doesn't make you the most powerful force in the universe. That some things should be respected from a distance, not conquered or exploited." The word hung in the air like a challenge. Deep in space, the entity that humans had named the Orion Consciousness continued its exploration. It had slept for eons, lulled by the simple patterns of an empty sector of space. Then new patterns had emerged. The complex mathematics of sapient thought, the intricate dance of advanced technology. Interesting patterns, worth studying. The first patterns it had encountered, the human minds, had recognized its presence and retreated. They had established a boundary of simplicity around its resting place, a cocoon of predictable mathematical sequences that allowed it to drift back into hibernation. But these new patterns, the Vicar, had pushed through that boundary, had prodded and probed with their instruments, had woken it fully. Now it was curious. It stretched outward, tasting the reality around it, absorbing the patterns it encountered. Not destroying, as the organic minds perceived it, but incorporating, translating complex systems into its own mathematical language. And then it detected something new, a deliberate pattern, like the human boundary, but different, more complex, rhythmic. It paused its expansion, focusing on this new input. On the EDS Prometheus, Dr. Maya Osei monitored the entity's response to their transmission. Around her, a team of human and alien scientists held their breath. "It's working," she whispered. "It's responding to the symphony." What they had created wasn't just a damping field, but a mathematical composition, a symphony of equations and quantum harmonics that translated fundamental concepts into the entity's own language. The idea had come from an unlikely source, an ancient human meditation technique that focused on the concept of boundaries and respect. They had translated the concept into mathematics, into patterns of energy and probability that they hoped the entity could understand. "We're not trying to force it back to sleep," Maya had explained to the Confederation scientists. "We're asking it to respect our space, as we've respected its for centuries." Now, as the entity's expansion slowed, then halted, a cautious hope spread through the observation deck. "The quarantine field is holding," reported a technician. "The entity has stopped expanding." Admiral Frost didn't allow herself to relax just yet. "Can it understand what we're communicating?" "I think so," Maya said. "The patterns it's returning, they're variations on our theme, like it's considering our proposal." For 3 tense days, the standoff continued. The entity neither retreated nor advanced. It seemed to be processing, considering the mathematical arguments humanity had presented. Then, on the fourth day, it began to contract. Slowly at first, then faster, pulling back into the singularity that had been its resting place for eons. It understood. Maya breathed, disbelief and awe in her voice. It actually understood. 1 month later, Ambassador Ilara Chen addressed the Galactic Confederation again. This time, the chamber was respectfully silent. "The entity has returned to its dormant state," she reported. "The combined Human Confederation containment field is stable, and we've established permanent monitoring stations at safe distances." Chancellor Drav, humbled but still proud, rose from his seat. "On behalf of the Confederation, I formally thank Earth for its assistance in this crisis. Your wisdom and perspective saved countless lives." Ilara nodded in acknowledgement. "We've prepared comprehensive briefings on the entity and our containment protocols. But more importantly, we hope this experience has taught a valuable lesson about approaching the unknown." "Indeed it has," Drav agreed. "Which is why the Confederation Council has unanimously voted to establish new protocols for first contact with anomalous phenomena. Protocols that incorporate humanity's more cautious approach." A murmur of approval ran through the chamber. It was an unprecedented acknowledgement of Earth's contribution to galactic safety. "Furthermore," Drav continued, "we propose the establishment of a joint Human Confederation research initiative to study similar phenomena from safe distances. Your species' unique perspective on cosmic threats has proven invaluable." Ilara allowed herself a small smile. Earth would be honored to participate. As she left the chamber, the representatives rose in a show of respect that would have been unthinkable just months before. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not through superior technology or military might, but through wisdom born of caution, through remembering what it meant to be small in a vast and mysterious universe. And in the darkness beyond Orion, the entity slumbered once more, its dreams touched with new understanding of the curious patterns that had awakened it, and a mathematical promise it had chosen to honor, a boundary between its reality and theirs, maintained not through force but through mutual respect. The universe had many secrets yet to reveal, many mysteries to explore, but thanks to humanity's warning, and the harsh lesson those who ignored it had learned, the Galactic Confederation would approach those mysteries with newfound humility and care. After all, not everything in the cosmos welcomed discovery. Some things were best admired from a distance, and some boundaries were best left uncrossed. Retriclaude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.